England beating Mexico 3-2 at the Azteca. Norway beating Brazil 2-1. And Balogun somehow is playing tomorrow. So much to talk about in today's show. Craig Burley's here, Shaka, Hislop, Jermaine Jones. We also welcome in Jurgen, Klinsmann. This could be a very long show today, but we haven't got long to discuss all these topics. So we'll kick off with the game that just finished at Azteca. England taking on Mexico. And it was a game that had so many storylines as it developed. Mexico with a dominant side. England quickly got 2 goals to take a 2-0 lead. Mexico got one back just before the break. England then had Quanta sent off in the second half, but Harry Kane converted a penalty to make it 3-1. Mexico then, 10 minutes later, were given their own penalty that Raul Jimenez would convert. And England just parked the bus and then some for the final 20 minutes and those wonderful 11 minutes of injury time as well. But in the end, they hold on. And everyone else can speak now.
The whole green room was sort of watching you because you went off to watch a chunk of the game somewhere else.
Yes, yeah.
And you came back in for the last
20 minutes.
20 minutes, which was nothing really happening in the last 20 minutes.
No, but it felt like 2 hours. It's like when you're on a treadmill and you think, oh, I've run a long way this time.
Look, I mean, I don't know where to start with this, with most of the games, but you have to give, bearing in mind all the things we talked about with the altitude issues and how the England players were going to cope with it, and then the crowd and the Azteca and this Mexican team that had the whole country behind them. And they really threw everything at England, but maybe just lacked that bit of quality in the final third. But for England, you have to give them an immense amount of credit. How they dug in, 10 men, how tired they were at the end, or for most of the second half, how much work they had to do. The performances of Pickford and Jude Bellingham in particular. Jude Bellingham looked like that man who was prepared to take the country on his shoulders, not only the 2 goals, but the defensive work, the clearance he had in the first half.
Yeah, the block.
From the centre half. He was a yard out and he managed to get his leg in there. His work rate, everything that Tuchel had sort of questioned and prodded him in the build-up to the World Cup. You know, I've spoken to Jude Bellingham, I've left him out the squad, I've talked to him about his work rate. He was running and running, even at the end, still going. And Pickford was brilliant. It was look. It wasn't an England performance that will last in the memory in terms of the way they played.
Yeah, but the scoreline.
But in terms of the scoreline, what was at stake, and the effort that these boys put in, that was a 10 out of 10.
Listen, I've sat here before and said you give players an excuse to lose a game, 9 times out of 10 they take it. And let's be honest, England had every single excuse to lose this. But Craig mentioned the heroic performances from the individuals, and in Pickford and Bellingham in particular. One highlight I will draw, probably about 30 minutes in, ball goes out, Declan Rice chases it down, camera cuts to him, and he looks absolutely exhausted. And you felt that was who England were at that time, 30 minutes into the game. Yet nobody ever stopped. Everybody was throwing their body on the line, getting in the way of things, especially when it mattered late on into this game. I did not see a performance like this from England in those circumstances. Being able to chase things down, just being able to get in the way of things when it was needed most. And in the end, it may not be remembered for the football, but it will be remembered for the grit, the determination, the conditions, everything that England showed themselves to be in the moment when they needed to be.
It's quite dramatic, Jermaine.
Yeah, I think England had, the football is a momentum game, right? In England had the moments in the situations. And I think every time they had them, they punished Mexico. So Mexico was always good in the game. I would say, if you look at the 90 minutes, Mexico was the better team. But every time England had to step up, if it's the first goal or second goal, or then they get the red card. And the next thing is straight away they get a penalty. You know, England, they punished Mexico again. So, and I think that was, you were able to see every time when Mexico felt like we have the push to come, they got punished. Bellingham was there. The next time, Bellingham was there. You know, what I said before. Then the penalty, you know, all over. If I look at it, we discussed it yesterday, and we said there was a lot of teams that don't play good football, right? Today we knew with the condition, everything, it would be not easy for England to go there, and you saw it that they struggled, but you have them give them credit for how they set it up, how they finished it, in how they used the momentums to score the goals, to punish Mexico, and put it on the Mexico that Mexico has to make the game.
Jurgen, your thoughts?
Well, I think we all saw a thriller, a fantastic match. Maybe on a technical side, not on the highest level, but I mean, from a fighting perspective, from up and down, from a drama, we saw it all. I mean, first half, definitely, Mexico tried to catch them early, tried to raise the tempo, mainly over the left side, which they tried to overload, and England was prepared for it. England dropped deep and waited for counter opportunities, and I think tactically in the right spots. They were Thomas Tuchel put them in a way together that it really matched his plan, and the way Gordon on his side and Shaka on the other side sacrificed themselves for defensive work was unbelievable. And then they were waiting for a specific moment, and that moment came when Pickford passed the ball into Rice, and then he sprinted 50, 60 yards down the right side, gave it to Shaka. Shaka crosses it in, and Jude Bellingham's run into the box is a masterpiece for teaching young kids how to get into the box and finish off a goal-scoring opportunity. Then 2 minutes later, they add another goal, and then obviously it gets hectic, and anything can happen at Azteca. Anything can happen in a split second and can change the momentum, can change the sides. And England knew that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a fight until the very end, but they accepted that fight. What really, really impressed me was the team performance by everyone, every English player. I mean, you obviously mentioned Bellingham and Pickford, outstanding, but every single player just threw himself in there and was surviving. And at the end, this is also a judgment of quality. They are the difference maker on a certain level. When they know they have difficult circumstances, they knew that they're going to run out of gas here and there, like Rice did. Shaka said after 30 minutes he couldn't breathe anymore. But we know those. Jermaine knows they were playing there, and you cannot breathe after 10 minutes. You're already on the limit. But you come always back in altitude, and so they had the spirit to every time coming back. When you thought Bellingham is dead tired, please, when suddenly he took a sprint of 20 meters, and it was a fantastic team performance by this English side. And I tell you now, the sky is the limit for this English team, because to survive there, to come out as a winning team there against this crowd in these conditions is a masterpiece of work. And now I think they can dream big. I think England has a chance to bring it all home.
He got his team selection right tonight, didn't he? In terms of Shaka back on the side, was a threat, created the goal with a cross, and Anthony Gordon to have the legs to run. When England were under a little bit of pressure, or a lot of pressure, and were defending a bit deeper, you need an out ball. And Harry Kane, as we know, is not going to run away from anybody, and he was a willing runner, as we know. Anthony Gordon, sometimes he's a bit of a frustrating player, but he works hard and he takes that ball into the channel. He'll take it for a run and he's a bit of pressure. So he got the tactics right there. Obviously, he had an issue, and he now has another issue at right back. But I don't think there's not much debate about the red card for Kwanzaa, but he's got Reece James injured. Jed Spence I think he was injured, but he was fit enough to come on in that game. So that side of the pitch is a bit of an issue for a bit. But in terms of the shape of the team, and then of course he throws on John Stones and Dan Burn, Morgan Rogers near the end, but he rolled his dice at 75 minutes with all those changes, the defensive changes, and he basically said there's going to be 20 minutes. As it turned out, it was nearly half an hour at that with the 11 minutes. There's going to be at least 20 minutes of defending, and I'm nailing my colours to the mast. Stones on, Burn on, and we're going to defend our box, and we're going to take our chances that way. And that's a risk, but these English boys, they literally put themselves on the line. Yeah. And you can't ask for any more than that, what they've done tonight. It wasn't super brilliant football, but it was never going to be, because you're going into this place, you have to figure out, do we take the game to Mexico and run out of gas, or do we try and take the sting out of the game and deal with the conditions, the altitude, and we ask Mexico questions? And that's what England did. And I think if you're Mexico, you'll look at yourself in several moments in the game. But losing the penalty when they did from a goal kick, it's such a crucial moment One long ball, and all of a sudden, a little deflection or flick on from Kane and the defender, and Anthony Gordon's in, and the keeper makes a rash challenge. That's too simple at any level of the game. Never mind international World Cup football where it's a knockout.
Jurgen, can I ask you about Jude Bellingham? Because there's been a lot of talk about the relationship that he has with Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel's been quite open with some of his criticism of the Real Madrid man. Is there any sort of mind games there in that Jude Bellingham is like, I'm going to prove you wrong? Because he was immense against DR Congo, and today he was absolutely world class.
Yeah, but these kind of discussions or mind games from a manager to a player, they are part of daily life in that environment. Because you as a coach, you have one big goal. You want to get the most out of every individual player. And since they're all different characters, you try it in different ways. And sometimes you need to sting certain players. You need to provoke them. You need to be maybe open in the public about the situation. I mean, he was not lying. He said his personal opinion. And you expect actually a reaction. You want something from the player, because when you do something like that and you make judgments of players in the public, your big hope as a manager is that they now respond, that they want to prove the point to themselves, obviously, but especially to the team. And Jude Bellingham did that. This game was unbelievable, was outstanding. I mean, I thought he's still probably running in the stadium. I think he's not even sitting down yet. But this is what you want from your superstars, and this is what you want. And we know it from Harry Kane; he gives you everything anyway. But now you have Jude Bellingham in the tournament. Now it's the big stage, and that's why I said before, I think the sky is the limit for this English side now.
Bellingham looked like and everybody had a point to prove because it's a round of 16, but he did look like a man possessed. Yeah. He looked like he wanted to.
So is that clever management, as Jurgen says? Like, as Tuchel kind of got him going?
Well, you could argue, yes. And it's almost like Bellingham wanted to be. He wanted to be the main man for England. He wanted to be the guy that carried them. I've never seen him play, not in terms of his goals, I've never seen him run about like that. And we're talking about altitude, where you're supposed to be knackered after 10, 20, 30 minutes. I've never seen him, I honestly have never seen him as physical as that, with the ball, running away from people. Obviously his goals are his forte, that's what he does. He times his runs into the box, and that's not an easy thing, because you get people charging in all the time. It's the timing of the run and where he makes the run off the striker. But it was the other part of the game that really impressed me. He's just harassing and chasing and working and defending. Because if he doesn't defend that set piece in the first half at the back post, that's the big number 3, I can't remember his name, he's putting that in the back of the net. It's moments like that, these small moments that people might forget about. I thought he was, bearing in mind he's had a lot of criticism over the last, 12 months or so, both at Real Madrid and I suppose at England, to put in a performance like that, and I'm not singling him out, but he kind of was sticking out at times, was just unbelievable.
I thought at times he showed a leadership quality that I certainly hadn't seen from Jude Bellingham in an England shirt. Very late on, Morgan Rogers comes on for Harry Kane, and it's Jude Bellingham who's instructed him where to go, what to do, and kind of having one-on-one conversations. This is late in the game, after Jude Bellingham has just covered every single blade of grass on the park at altitude. He's the one who's kind of leading from the front for England in this most crucial moment. I do not think we can speak highly enough of Jude Bellingham's performance for England tonight.
That's what you want. As a teammate, as a player, you want your big men to step up at this stage of the tournament.
Yeah, of course. I think as a teammate, you look at it and go, okay, he's the main guy, even if he's young. But yeah, he showed it completely. Today he showed up. But even the games before already, he showed up. And I agree with Jurgen. You know, when Jurgen said, sometimes as a coach, you try to, figure out what is better. If I talk in the public, if I keep it behind doors. And I think, but we all know the quality from Jude Bellingham. I think it was a time where he was a little bit trying to find his fitness and all that stuff. But I think now he's coming to be 100%. And I think you can see what we say, like what we talked, is that he has that presence of, against the ball, with the ball. He scores goals, but the work he does without the ball, it's amazing. And it shows just even for the guys behind him to be like, hey, if he's keep going, let's go again. Let's do it again. Work against the ball, and even with the guy, even with the guy down, so that he's not like just walking around and thinking, no, I'm the big guy here. So he's putting the work in, and that's I think every coach, when you see that, you love it.
Ironically, he was one of the players and one of the positions coming into this tournament that.
Well, it was like, will Rodgers start ahead of him?
There was a debate over it, and not just because of Tuchel's words, but because of Morgan Rodgers' form and Jude Bellingham's form. So there was a sort of debate about who would play in what we would call that number 10 role. But clearly, Thomas Tuchel knew in his mind what he wanted. It was what Jude Bellingham he was going to get. Because if he gets this Jude Bellingham at the World Cup, he's on a winner. But it's taken him to stoke Bellingham and maybe make Jude Bellingham think, coming to the World Cup, am I going to be on the bench or am I actually starting here? And sometimes that's the sort of kick up the backside a player needs. I mean, we might be totally wrong, but that's certainly how it's been painted from the England camp.
Yeah. But you can take it even up. Then I'll say this here: you can take it as a player, right, from the complete opposite side. Right? When the coach puts you on the bench or don't put you in the roster for camps before the World Cup, you can be like, what's going on? Why I'm not here? And you start reacting different, right? But he completely was the one who said, okay, I put my be quiet, and I show him on the field, and I think that speaks for Bellingham.